I attended the Beijing Robot Conference and the World Robot Games in Beijing as well. They were on separate weekends or separate weeks, but it was highly attended. I don't know the numbers of attendees, but there were many. As you can see here, the robot that we were going to enter wasn't very fast, and even me with a knee replacement and not being able to run as fast as I would normally run, I was able to beat the robot handily. This is our entry into the race, the one on the right. And I also went to visit some historical sites while I was there. My favorite place so far, and obviously I'd only been there for a few minutes, was the Forbidden City. And there were thousands upon thousands of people just trying to get in. It was raining that day. It was a perfect day to take a jog or a slight walk around the entirety of the grounds. As I walked around, many people, including many elementary school kids, wanted to take photos with me, thinking that I might have been famous. Not quite famous yet, maybe one day. As I went around, I noticed one thing that was common around all the people. People seemed to be very, very kind, very inquisitive, and very happy. Although there was an amazing amount of crowd, it still seemed like I was alone in certain places. As I walked around the gardens and the beautiful, thoughtful, well put together grounds, I just thought, wow, what would it be like if I was here and I was able to come in many years ago? Although historically, not many people were allowed here. And just looking around, you can see just the care and architecture that was put into this place brought a smile to my face. Onward to the venue, in style, provided by my host and business partner. And you can see here, we are in the same place as the Beijing 2022 games, inside of the, I believe it's the ice skating rink for speed skating. Here we're walking inside, and we have a couple of robots with us that we're going to test out. Mainly the robot that you saw me race earlier. Just to think that Olympians that came here before me and walked into this beautiful arena. We also attended the Robot World Conference and suspiciously had only robots from near Asia and Asia. I wish that we had some more the American participants like Figure 1X, Tesla, Agility, just to give some kind of reference points or scale to the event. No matter what, there was a lot of buzz, so many people. They allowed everyone to come in and visit, and they didn't hold back, making the event more family friendly and a little bit more dangerous as there were children running everywhere. One of the amazing things about this venue was it was big enough to house almost every entry into the field. It was so large, in fact, that on day one, I was only able to get to maybe 2/3 of the event moving at full speed, not stopping to have finer detail about any one robot. In hindsight, I would have gone for the entirety of the 3 days, from morning till evening, and slowly walked around in order to really fully take in the entirety of the venue. I've never seen this many robots in one place before. Some were static robots that looked like they might have run or moved at some point, and others were well put together and fully working at the venue. This is an interesting one that combines wheels and legs for maximum versatility. Here it's just sitting around, but I also saw it move. Usually when the robots were moving, hundreds of people gathered, and luckily I was taller than most, so I could stand behind everyone and still get a good view of the robot. This particular robot was one of my favorites to see just because of its versatility and movement, but there were plenty of others that I just don't have time to mention one by one. As I took in most of these robots, one of the first things that came to mind was the difference in quality as well as the difference in ability from the videos that all of these robots seem to have about how versatile they are and how much they can move and what they can do. And when you get them in person, usually it's not the same experience. But for the most part, everyone was open with their capabilities. There were no hidden doors or walls where the robots were being teleoperated. This was just robots doing what they could do. Some were great, some had predefined routines, and others were clearly teleoperated with the controller standing far off, so to give the impression that the robot was autonomous. Thinking about some of these robots, I can see where they'd be immediately useful. With wheels and the ability to telescope to get to higher and lower places, there seemed to be a commonality among the humanoid robots that might enter the workplace and the home immediately. Legs are inherently unstable, and so what we see here are a lot of robots with stability in the wheels, having a wheelbase, and then the ability to telescope up and down. Some telescoping mechanisms seemed a little dangerous in that there weren't any cameras between the telescope and or the degree of freedom and the actual robot moving. So you could easily get something caught, including arms and legs of a little person with some of these robots. So camera facing down, minimum requirement, I think. Other robots were clearly composites of different pieces of robots, and you can tell very well that they were in a beginning stage of development. But the excitement, nonetheless, as I think about having popcorn delivered to me by a robot. Some robots were really good, in my estimation, about telling the truth about the difficulty there is in the world of grasping. Here, this robot's being teleoperated and they're collecting data, which is the stage that most of these robots were in. Some form of teleoperation or some form of manual operation. Although this robot stood out to me as a robot that was very, very well trained as far as its walking gait, dynamic stability, although it was hard to tell what it was capable of at the show because it still is a fairly static environment. There are not items on the floor like one would have. If you have children, there's definitely things like pencils and pens that the robot can slip on, and gravel, those type of things, walking upstairs. All these things, for the most part, weren't demonstrated. A few robots did demonstrate that, but for the most part, they were just showing the ability to do basic, predefined routines or just walking. This robot drew great attention just because it had a natural stride in its walking. Likely trained with some human in the loop at some point. That brings us to the common theme that I see on the internet about this conference and the level of disappointment that I see. When reality is, if you look at this as a whole, there are about 140 companies in China and Near East that are working on humanoids. 140. Let that sink in for a minute. And as you look in the United States, there are far fewer. And most of the talent is taken up by 4 or 5 companies, Tesla, Figure, Agility, and others. Boston Dynamics. The talent is spread thin just everywhere else. So, and then we don't have the manufacturing capability of, say, China. So when we see 140 different robotic companies and they're doing small things that are slightly different or even copying each other, that should still give you a bit of confidence that the world of robotics is growing. And it's just different perspectives on how it's going. In China, the manufacturing process is better. United States, I believe we still have a leg up on research. Just brain draining the rest of the world, including our own engineers from the United States, but we also have many people that have come to this country to just make it in life. And some of the best research I've seen have been from Chinese Americans working out of MIT, Caltech, Berkeley, and Stanford. So it just so happens that I believe we have far too many robotic companies and far too few of talent to disperse among those companies. But here you can see a realistic walking gait. This robot's being teleoperated, but it was also able to walk around with a diverse carpet without falling, standing in the middle of people. And you can see here small children, which I wouldn't advise, but it was able to, as you can see, walk across various surfaces without any problems whatsoever. Now this policy that it's trained on is a common policy, and hence the robot didn't do anything miraculous, but you can tell that a lot of work has gone into just ensuring that this policy worked on such a large upper-bodied robot. Here's another one of that same form that we talked about earlier. And as I was really interested in components, I spent a lot of my time looking at the components of the robot that were available. A lot of companies, while they were building robots, also had components for sale for the same robots they built. As you can see here, I kind of show these videos to see the scale in which this was operating at. As I'm trying to walk around and talk to each vendor, at least give each vendor a little bit of time, I noticed that there were so many people, too many people engaged, and maybe if I had this event, I would have a professionals day first and then allow the wider audience to come in and check out some of these robots. As you can see here, I'm looking around and I'm also trying to have some great conversations. Some of the robots that are walking around, I did stop and spend some time with the engineers. I had a translator with me that was fairly good at engineering, so she was able to translate on my behalf. And then at another time, I had my business partner, who was a great engineer to be, even though he was a business major. He's picked up the world of engineering quite well, and I think that's probably genetic. And was capable of translating on my behalf. While I was talking, I kind of was educating a bit about mechatronics and why certain things are built the way they are on robots. And he was educating me on the manufacturing process and some of the things that happen in China. So there was a lot going on between the two of us while we were walking around. This robot was especially interesting as well. Just the degrees of freedom, natural movements. I don't know if we're going to end up with robots that look exactly like humans, that were able to perform the same actions as humans. But I know that right now there is an effort to ensure that the robot has fluid movements like a human today. That might not be the best modality one day. Maybe we might come up with a robot that can handle a human-centric environment, but yet not be a human and not look scary, as I've seen some robots that look like snakes and spiders and other things. And certainly we don't want those around our children and our families today. We might want that in the future. We might get there. But today, certainly not. And this robot took a bow, which I think was really just apropos, given that it did put on a show for me. And I was very impressed with some of the things that it was able to do in the fluidity of movement. I would like to have seen the upper body and the lower body work in concert. And that seemed to be a theme, that most of the robots that I saw had a really good policy for the bimanual manipulation. I'm sorry, the walking gait, but and when it came down to it, it couldn't really walk and do anything else at the same time. So here, as you can see, the robot starts moving with its legs, its arms just stop. It's not whole body control, but also very good. On to some other stuff. Like there's obviously it's going to be a fairly long video, so I'm going to make it into 3 parts. And so I was able to do some other things while I was here in China. I visited 4 cities and just took in the culture. I've been to China before, but I didn't have an interpreter, and it was many years ago. So this time I had an interpreter to go with me and explain some of the things that were going on. And I think I had a much richer experience hearing from a local about how everything goes, like from education to daily life, those kinds of things, just to see the differences and actually talk to a person who would just be honest about how life goes in a different country. And I gave my perspective of the United States as well to these individuals, from my driver to my assistant to my partners and all of his people that he works with. Everyone was so kind. The food was amazing. As you can see here, I'm at a dinner theater that goes through the history of food in China. I would recommend this. 5 out of 5 stars. Just wonderful. The service was amazing. The food was great. The story that they were telling, look, there's acrobatics going on, and my daughters would be proud of that, was just really well done. So this is the first of, I would say, 3 parts of this video, because we're going to go a little bit deeper into just what goes on at the robot conference, and we're going to also talk about the robot games, which got a lot of press on the internet in the last few days, especially the Unitree H1 that ran into the person. Unfortunately, that's the press we're going to get that makes the biggest splash when a robot that was controlled by a person runs an error. The robot that I controlled actually had an error too, but wasn't noteworthy, I guess, in that it just stopped after maybe 120 meters of running in a 400-meter race. So those kinds of things are just going to happen. We're getting closer to where we need to be. We're not there yet. H1 was remote controlled. I think the real story should have been that there was a robot there by Ting Tong, which was autonomous. It ran the track on its own. I think that should have been the real story, and actually was credited with winning the race. As you can see here, I'm eating, I think this is sea urchin there, nothing crazy. And there was our server, just an amazing lady. She stopped and took a picture with me, and then also let me photograph her shoes after I asked her were they difficult to wear as she was walking around gracefully, which I thought was an art on its own. Just the culture that I witnessed overall, from the modern culture to antiquity, was just beautiful. In the next video, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that I did while I was in Wuhan, Beijing, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and others. I'm going to just dive a little bit deeper into the cultural aspects and the humanoid robot games, as well as the robot conference. So I'll leave you here to be very jealous of the food that I ate. Delicious food. Some things I didn't know what it was, and I was happy to have a person there that can interpret it on my behalf, just about the various foods that I was eating traditionally, where they were from. And I would definitely like to thank my 2 assistants, Ariel and Eva, who just took me around and treated me very well everywhere I went. They bargained on my behalf when it was time to buy things. And it was just a really great thing to have a local who speaks the language. And if you've ever been anywhere and you pay the gringo price, I didn't have to pay the gringo price anywhere. One interesting thing to note, as this is a less technology and a little bit cultural video as well, is that China is very inexpensive. I stayed in an amazing hotel, and I don't want to make anyone jealous on that, but my hotels were amazing, 5-star the entire time. I don't think I spent more than $100 a day on hotels. and my food price per day, if it wasn't for my gracious host, I'd probably have spent maybe $20-30 on just high-class food all the way. My host decided that I should have the real food experience and made it a little bit better than that. And I don't know what he paid for that, but I'll tell you that you could survive on great food, very wonderful local shops for about $30-35 per day, if that's what you're really interested in doing and really seeing the local culture. I did spend a lot of time walking around the streets when I could in my free time. There wasn't much free time. We were really busy the entire time as we are in the running to create a very, very fast, very, very long-lasting robot, so that the next time you see me in China, or maybe one of the few times after it, you'll see me with a robot that can enter the half marathon. Anyway, part 1 of 3, all done. We'll see you next time.